Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and here's my weekend review ending today, November 24th, 2019. Last week's video got messed up and I was pretty upset about that, which is why I never posted it. But I have a lot to talk about today, specifically on the tube. But let's get started with the films that I streamed. I did get to watch this film, Auggie, and that was on Hoopla, because Mercer County library card. And this was a sci-fi film starring Richard Kind, aka Bing Bong, and he gets these augmentation glasses that you have someone manifest in front of you, and it's this young woman, and he begins to have this budding relationship with this woman who's not real, but he can only see with his glasses. And how this deals with marital issues and relationships and this idea of the ever-growing prevalence of technology in our lives. I thought this was a really cool film. I would strongly recommend this. It has some crazy twists and turns as well, and it's pretty short. It's like an hour, 20 some odd minutes. I really enjoyed Auggie. And then I watched Photograph, which was a foreign language film about this man falling in love with this woman, and he takes pictures, and it's raw, and it's beautiful, and it's just a nice tale going through this film, slowly seeing their relationship build. Also a film that I would recommend, honestly. And, shit, did I watch that on Hulu and Amazon? I forgot to put a note about that. It's on one of them. My Netflix DVDs, I got to watch The Iceman with Michael Shannon, and it's a bit rough around the edges in terms of how it's edited and put together, but like Michael Shannon's performance is so intense, and he just makes it worth watching the film just for him as this Iceman, this hitman, and it's really impressive. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I watched What Men Want. I'm starting to get to my Netflix DVD where it's all 2019 films that were like straight to streaming or things I might have missed in the theater. Like, I missed What Men Want, and this is that reimagining of a female perspective on that Mel Gibson film, which honestly was It was watchable. This one, only slightly watchable. Because none of the humor made me laugh, and the first half of this film was obnoxious and horrible, and I hated it. When it started really getting into its message, which has a very valuable message in this film, and does realize it decently well, and when it gets a little more emotional and a little serious, I appreciated this film more, but when it's trying to be funny, it's just crap. And it's a no. I wouldn't recommend this film in general, but like, that's also coming from a late 20s white man, so if this is something that you watched that trailer and thought, I would enjoy this, go check it out. I'm going to jump to the binge watching first, which I got to watch all of the first season of Dickinson, starring Haley Steinfeld, playing Emily Dickinson on Apple TV. I loved it. It's ambitious. It has an interesting twist on this period piece, as the dialogue is anachronistic. Like, death is like a rapper. And it was really interesting. It had a lot of cliches, but Haley Steinfeld's great. And I really appreciated the show a lot, and I look forward to seeing more of it. Now, on the tube, I am in the middle of watching a lot of shows right now, so let's go. So, the new episode of The Watchmen that debuted last Sunday, Tim Blake Nelson's character gets a lot more to do in this episode, and you really get to see more of him, and this show is taking such a twist. And now it's, so like the first episode or two, you're like, how's this really related to Watchmen? And now you're deep diving into this craziness and really connecting back to the comics. And you're like, okay, I see where this is going now. And now I'm hooked. There's so many intriguing things that Damon Lindelof keeps me attached. I also watched His Dark Materials. I'm enjoying it. I wish I was enjoying it more, but it's it's pretty straightforward. It's an interesting fantasy. I'm waiting for it to kick into gear, and I don't know. I'm going to stick with it, but it's not the thing, like, out of all the shows I'm watching, it's definitely not the one that's blowing me away. I caught up on episode 5 and 6 of For All Mankind. This most recent episode that debuted on Friday is digging deep into some interesting things and dealing with a lot of politics and some interesting twists with some characters and adding a lot more intrigue to the show. Because it felt like much more of a straightforward, here's a space thing, but there's a lot more layers coming out in the show that I really appreciate in this most recent episode. And then you have Bob's Burgers, which, it's Bob's Burgers, and I'm really enjoying it. And Bob and Linda get invited out to go to this party with a bunch of adults late at night, and them fighting like, I want to go to bed, and leaving the kids, and the kids getting into hijinks because, it's the Belcher kids, and it was a fun episode. Rick and Morty, though. Rick and Morty's great as ever. This second episode, my God, this is a tragic arc that Rick goes through over his toilet. His personal toilet on this different planet, and it's such a weird story, and him and Jeffrey Wright, who plays this alien in it, is fantastic. And then you go on this opposite side, and Taika Waititi and Sam Neill, apparently these New Zealand-speaking, Kiwi-speaking aliens, it's like, please don't try helping me produce my app. And this whole entire weird thing with this application and all the crazy shit, this weird dating app, Rick and Morty's so great. The morning show hit a lot more emotional beats than it has for a while for me. And, Jennifer Aniston's character is really hitting, a breaking point here. And it's really interesting because this episode really focused around her a lot. For the most part. But then there's some other moments that, Billy Crudup's character, who honestly is the most interesting character on the show to me, has some very interesting place in this episode and some perspective that he gives on this whole process of being a producer and creating things. I'm honestly still enjoying the show pretty well. The Mandalorian, though. What an episode. And spoilers, if you haven't heard that there's a Baby Yoda species alien in this show, because it's all over the internet. It's a little predictable this episode, but you know what? There's some real tension, some awesome action, and Pedro Pascal is amazing as the Mandalorian. Carl Weathers gets some moments, Fred Herzog is back. And there's a lot of cool Mandalorian action in this episode. Jeff Goldblum, yes, looks at Jeff Goldblum tattoos, yes. And the best part of this whole entire episode was him going to a convention just for, Jeff Goldblum Day in Pittsburgh. And there's one tattoo of a raptor head on Jeff Goldblum's leaning body with his chest out, and it was absolutely hilarious. This episode of The Good Place this week all focus on Chidi, and I absolutely loved it. And every single episode this season has had this emotional hook moment, and this episode has 2 of them, and it's so great. All the way up to the last minute, and I can't believe there's only 5 episodes left of this show, but I can't wait to see where this show goes. C has some interesting twists and new connections developing in the 6th episode, and Jason Momoa messes some people up in this episode in a really cool, mind action sequence in the dark. It was really cool. And then watching the new episode of My Hero Academia, it's really hitting into a crux and a reveal of who this antagonist is of this season. And there's a little twist that if this is true, what it's alluding to is messed up. It's on Full Metal Alchemist level messed up. And the show is really fleshing out where this season's going to go and where the focus is, and we're bringing the young heroes and the established heroes together, and I'm waiting for shit to blow up. But it's been a cool week. And if you want to comment on any of the shows or movies that I watched on here, you want more insight, or just want to talk about any of them, please comment. And thank you as always for supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.